Hi everyone, welcome to my review of the Inbetweeners movie, directed by Ben Palmer in 2011. So yes, here we are with this film, and here's a Blu-ray of the Inbetweeners movie, and yes, the extended cut is the one that I watched on this rewatch, of course, and yes, spoilers warning for this, and possibly the show. I don't plan my reviews, but I may go into the show, a little bit as well. So if you haven't seen that, and of course this film, just be warned. Maybe just watch them and then come back to this. But yes, this film, is very, very interesting. Of course, I haven't really talked about it too much on my channel, but strangely, I did review the first series of the TV show, back last year in September. I've done a ranking, I believe, of these episodes as well. There's 6 episodes, and of course, I love the show, and season 1, series 1 is absolutely amazing. I think all 3 of these, are absolutely amazing, and especially season 2, that is just the high point, really. One of the greatest, creations in British kind of TV, really, for me, and just comedy in general. I feel it's just so good. I love it, and yes, this film, came a year after the the 3rd series was aired, and it's a kind of a show that I watched season 1 and 2 when season 2 was actually on, and then I watched kind of live, if you will, or just kind of when it was out, coming out every week. I watched the 3rd season. So yeah, it's a show that, and I just loved all of this. I think it's amazing. Loved it so much. And then of course, yeah, as you would be, pretty much hyped for the film. Really hyped for this, I was, and I picked it up. I think I got it. Yeah, actually, I got it for Christmas when it came out on Blu-ray. Here it is. And yes, as I say, I've not really talked about them too much, although I have, of course, said I don't think that the 2 films, are as kind of anywhere near close to this show. And yes, it's very interesting because this film is written by, the creators of the show, Ian Morris and Damon Beasley, directed by Ben Palmer, who directed all of season 2 and 3, and that's very interesting. This film, of course, done really well at the box office, and quite a lot of people do really like this film, but a lot of people aren't too keen on it, and this is going to be my honest review. It's going to spoilers warning, but yes, just a review where of course, I think I have every right to be a very disappointing film. I must say this. I think it's a real shame. Very sad, I have to say, to see this film. Even though I don't think it's a bad film, I think it's average. I kind of like it. I didn't dislike it. I don't really like it too much at all. And when I first saw it, I was just thinking, I'm sure they could have done better than this. And it's very interesting because being aware, the same sort of team here, all the actors as well, the main 4, characters, that I guess most of us loved from the show. Of course, you've got Will, Jay, Neil and Simon, Blake Harrison, you've got Simon Bird, Joe Thomas and James Buckley. All of these actors, these characters, are back again. The parents as well show up a little bit at the beginning, and Mr. Gilbert, the character, is in some of the scenes as well, mainly at the beginning. But other than that, you've got new characters coming as well. But it's just very interesting, this film. I think just where did it go? Where did it go wrong? I must say, while it's not a bad film, I'd give it a thumbs up or something, kind of thing. But I don't feel too much for this, and it's very frustrating to see this film again. Just every time I see it, I just get reminded of how much, I must say, it does piss me off. I really get annoyed with this film. I really am, kind of disappointed. While I do like it, and I would recommend it to people who like comedies. Well, it's hard to say. I can't say if you love the show that you will like this, because maybe not at all. You might hate it, and that's very much understandable. With all respect to everyone would react differently to this, and I think I can understand if people love the film. I can understand if people really don't like it at all, because it's very, this film I just don't quite get, where where it was all going really, and how it was kind of how it was made like this. A year later, kind of you could say maybe a bit rushed, because this is a film. It's not just another show, another series. It's a film. They brought it out, and then there's a 3 year gap between this and the second. So it's kind of strange there. I've never talked about the second really, but I have never really come to a conclusion whether I like it or dislike it. Maybe I'll like it more on a rewatch, that one, but I didn't really respond to that one either, and it's very disappointing. This is the Inbetweeners. I personally love the show. I think it's one of my favourite shows of all time. Season 2 is pretty much perfect. Comedy TV. It's just so good. And to go to this, I think is an average film and very frustrating. The 4 main characters, of course, as we know, go to Malia, and to kind of sum it up, I think the first 20 minutes is very, very good. And I was thinking, oh, this might be better than I remembered. It's been a few years since I watched it. Maybe I'll just kind of I'll like it more now that it's not the initial disappointment. But I think it's just after that it's kind of weird thinking when exactly is the minute mark, where it starts to tank a little bit, this kind of going in a different direction, and it's very strange. It's between that 20 and 30 minute mark, once they really arrive in Malia and they hit the streets at night, I don't think this film really appeals to me in a lot of these areas, and I do enjoy character moments at times, and I think seeing this 4 together, and the warmth of the performances and stuff, in the first 20 minutes, and it does pick up a bit at the end, it does bring the film up, but there's quite a lot of this middle of the film, or majority of the film, which I think is kind of at best mediocre, average. I think just there's a lot of this stuff that I don't respond to. It's not something that appeals to me. This film, it's took kind of elements from the show and kind of altered them in the way it's approached and the way it's kind of the sincerity. I think the show is just a charming kind of thing here with 4 kind of maybe different characters. They're kind of outcasts, of course. They come together, and throughout the show they desperately try and maybe do things they think are important and stuff, and they think that they're cool and they try to fit in, but many moments in the show, and I'm sure many would agree, it's clear that that's not important, that kind of stuff, and necessarily getting with different, having relationships in that way, and just having, of course, sex and everything like this. This is what this film actually says in the back. Stuff like, the 4 guys, kind of become men. 4 boys become men, and it's just kind of, it's focusing a lot on the sex and getting drunk and all this. And the show really approaches in a much in a way that I've never really seen anything do in a modern way, and just I think it just worked so well, and it was so kind of these awkward situations, so well built up, and just so sincere and kind of humble and grounded, and just very, very human, and it's not focusing on this is what you have to do to become a man and all this. This film, I think, kind of does rub me up the wrong way, kind of thing. It does annoy me in the way that's approached, because it does really just kind of, the main plot is these 4 guys at times act out of character, and they get with these women, and at the end of the film, as we know, they end up, all 4 of them very conveniently end up with these women, and while they're on holiday, of course, and it's just a bit, it's just a real shame here, very disappointing, some of this film, and it's probably a bit negative, but while I do kind of like the film, I don't dislike it overall. I dislike some of the film, I must say, and I think some aspects of the film, I think literally, it's wrong to do this to this show and to these characters. It just doesn't work. I think it's very strange. I don't know what happened with studios interfering or telling them they have to do this, or generally maybe the creators and stuff thinking we have to appeal to a bigger audience here, and how it's going to be a movie, not a British sitcom, because this film does not feel like a British anything really, other than the first bits, and seeing them again, these bits, I think very enjoyable. I think that kind of makes me think, why did they not just keep this in Britain? Maybe just a holiday inside of the UK and stuff, and keep it more this feel, because it did have that feel at first. I think in the first the bits at home, 10 minutes or so, before they start traveling, is just, it's like checking in again and seeing all the parents and stuff. It's very, very funny, and very just grounded. Although I do think it's definitely very different. Everything is exaggerated, which can happen from TV to film translations, and that kind of, I can't get too disappointed with that. It was still very good, I think, mostly these parts, but it did, Mr. Gilbert, the way his speech, maybe it wouldn't have happened like that. Let's face it, I think it was a bit unrealistic, in that way. It wasn't quite as grounded, as believable as the show would have been in a moment like that. Maybe season 3 started to kind of go in that way, but not really. But even that, and then you've got the use of music throughout the film. I'm not a fan of the kind of backing music here, and also just the song choice. We go from the Libertines and etc. Great British stuff here in the show, to a load of trash, in my opinion. Whether they play the party music, really bad music, in my opinion, and it's a shame. All this feel, this charm, and this kind of gritty, maybe, just this feeling that's very, I think, specific to the show, and pivotal to the show, is lost in this film at times, and just. But I do think the first 20 minutes, I think it was really good when they arrived. The kind of bit that we're staying here, the disappointment, of course, seeing that it's an absolute horrible place, disgraceful place that they stay in. Very, very funny stuff, and maybe when that first dance scene happens, the kind of first transition into it is quite funny as well. Will, especially the character there, his kind of his moves, but then that's really when it starts to tank a little bit. It starts to go gradually downhill. It does pick up again at the end. As I say, it's average, but I don't like calling the Inbetweeners anything average, because that's not what the show was for me, and that's why, understandably, I'm very disappointed with this film. But it doesn't. It's not a bad film, but yes, it just goes on for too long, that dance scene, and this is not the humour that the Inbetweeners is, really. And then, it's just them walking around at night and stuff, and going, oh, she's fit and stuff. This is the show is a lot more than that. I'm sorry. The show is just everything, really, that you want from a kind of coming of age, kind of outcasts trying to fit in and realizing it's not maybe necessary to, although they are still, they're relatable, but they're kind of they're different, they're unique, and together they are friends and stuff. But this film, they kind of just become normal, everyday kind of, going out, getting drunk, going on this thing that they think, has to happen, and then when it does, they all end up with the women, get together and stuff, and it's just it's a shame. Very safe film, but one I'm sure has very clearly alienated the fan base here. I think I'm not saying that this is a bad film. I'm not one of the people that hate it, but I am really not someone who feels too strongly about this film, and maybe the second one might be a bit better than this. When I rewatched that one, it doesn't focus as much on the kind of sex and the party, and that's very clear in that one. But that does some things that I found maybe worse at times. We'll get to that. Maybe I'll think differently. But yes, this film, the thing is as well, I don't really connect to the whole kind of the people who they get to. I think Jane's a good character, actually. That's the one. I think it's good what they were doing there with Jay. Everyone's saying, oh, she's overweight and stuff, and then he actually, and his father as well, in the show, where he's kind of constantly said, don't go for the overweight women and stuff, and then he does get with Jane because he kind of just likes her personality, and he does. It doesn't matter that she's overweight, for example, and actually she was the best character of the the people that they meet. I think personally, I think that was actually well wrapped up. I did feel humanity there. I felt warmth, and it was a good message. So yeah, that's a good one. But Alison is a at times despicable character. Really didn't like her. Very, very. I just thought, why would Will? Maybe they were going for something, maybe like Charlotte. Kind of another version of Charlotte. With Alison, but really, it's like, why would Will want to go with her? Kind of thing. She's not nice. What she does, and it's just very, very unenjoyable. This, and as well, Lucy. I think if they didn't bring Kari back into the film, which was a real negative of the film, I think it may have been better with her, but because she was kind of a nice character, but Simon was just a complete, arsehole throughout the film. Really, let's put it that way. Simon was not, very likable in this film. He was constantly obsessed with Carly again. I think it was just a bit too much on this occasion with the way he was kind of ignoring Lucy, and it was just too heavy-handed for me. And Carly in this film is not a good character at all. I feel, and just the way he's constantly being just very unlikable in this film. And then at the end, of course, he does realise, but it's too little, too late. And I think these relationships are not well fleshed out, really. As I say, Jane and Jay, it's the only kind of thing that's actually got some substance to it, really. I feel, but the rest of it is kind of just one note. I think kind of cheap writing, which is a shame. And it's just my opinion. With all respect to these writers, the creators of the show, they're just great talents. But on this occasion, I just think a lot of the stuff didn't work in the writing department too well. But it has a comedy. It has got laughs. It has, it's got some warmth to it. In these parts, even in the middle, here and there. It's just, it's a shame that the main bulk of the narrative is just so basic. The depth of the characters is just very much watered down. I feel, and it just isn't. I think the editing is quite trashy as well at times. Unfortunately, very disappointing editing, and just it's just kind of it's very, very disappointing. And cinematography, it's got some good shots, but other than that, it doesn't feel. It's weird that Ben Palmer directed this, because it just doesn't feel. You look at it and kind of think, some other guys have come in and kind of done the screenplay, directed this, and not quite knowing what the show, I think personally, is. But no, it's very interesting. But and with all respect, I just don't think this film works too well. I think it's very, very average, and that's only because the first 20 minutes, and moments littered throughout, mainly because of these actors, and the ending, the way it comes together, maybe at times is a bit of a pickup. It's quite decent. Other than that, I think this would be, kind of maybe a kind of dislike from me. But it's only 90 minutes or so. So, taking everything into account, I think it's average. And I do kind of like the film. I don't dislike it, but I wouldn't say it's a definite. So I like the film. You definitely. It's very much, I kind of like it. I'd give it a thumbs up, but that's not something I should be saying as an obsessed fan of the show. With this film, this is a disappointment, and this is just an honest review. Voicing my opinion of this film here. And it just, just looking at the back as well. I mean, just the fishbowl and everything. It's just a shame. This isn't the spirit, and the heart of the show. I think this show is just so good. It's full of heart, full of charm. And I think I have every right to say, I don't think this should have been. This is a British show, specifically with the humour, the tone, and I just don't think it works going to these locations, and the way they changed the whole outlook of the film and stuff, and the whole tone of this and feel, and the kind of the gritty nature that it had, and the kind of this sitcom what it was, this doesn't feel anything like that really at times. It's just there's not much to it other than them getting these women most of the time. But yes, this is not when it says 4 boys become men. And they go out and they go on holiday, they get drunk and they get women. I'm sorry, is that really what becoming a man is? I don't agree with it. It's just my opinion. I think it's just a bit immature, really, and just a bit poor taste at times. I don't have to apologise. I'm such a fan of the show, and I think this is just just a while it's an okay film. It's average. I think it's really really disappointing. And you can give your thoughts in the comments, and talk about this, and hopefully the show as well. We'll talk about the show in the comments. But I have every right really to be disappointed with this, because it's not just it's not quite as good, or it's a bit rushed and stuff. It's very much taking, it's like someone has taken some aspects from the show, what they are at face value, and completely got rid of the depth for most of the characters, and the charm and the patience and the warmth and the message. The message is really, and put it into this. Four lads go on holiday, get smashed, get these four women, and then just it's very 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 disappointing. But yes, the things to praise are the performances from the main four characters here. I think the actress of Lucy was pretty good as well, and Jane as well. The performances there definitely quite good. But yeah, it's kind of the performances, and the fact that these four characters, together at times. Of course, it adds for some comedy. I think there's really really funny moments at first, and that's why I do like the film. Combined with the kind of some parts, the way it kind of comes together. And just there's some laughs, throughout the film. But I was never really finding myself, laughing out loud, other than maybe one or two parts at the beginning. Because it's situations. They're put in awkward situations, and just a grounded feel that it had more. Although as I say, very watered down and very slightly different. Definitely, it's very different at first even, but it was stuff like this that just kind of, I think, it's kind of smart writing and stuff, and just kind of layered in some way, and then the main plot of the film, the main kind of narrative, the main kind of progression, if you will, of these characters, and their transitions, to what is happening in this film. It's just at times unenjoyable a little bit, and just stuff that I don't connect to. I don't think I don't really agree with stuff that what the film is saying really, if it is saying something, and it's just in the way it's saying it. This is what cinema is. It's just not as sincere. I don't feel the warmth, the kind of the good intentions of the show. Absolutely not. A lot of this in the middle of the film. I think that's just me being honest. Have to say, and I think actually there's a scene in the extended cuts, which actually shouldn't have been in there as well. I'm not going to get into all this stuff, but as I say, this is kind of my honest review, and so I'm not a big fan of this film at all. It's not the show that I love, but it's not me just being a kind of fanboy or anything. I'm just honestly saying the stuff in the show is it appealed to me because it was this, and it's not like it's like a book to film, it's different, it's kind of thing. But actually no, it's just because it's what they do in this film, while changing stuff. It's just not appealing to me, like this show was. Treat it as separate things, kind of thing. It's not that it needs to transition in specific exact ways, but it's something that the spirit and the charm and the warmth and the enjoyability of the show is lost in this, and it's not present here. It's just simply not present in this film, a lot of the film, and that's why it's just an average film instead of a great one, like the show is for me. I think they're all great, and this one, it's a tricky one to review because I thought, would I review it? But I think I want to review this and just say my thoughts. And it's just my opinion. I can understand if people love the film. If you just think, of course, as well, you love these characters and you just love seeing them together. Perfectly understandable. And just if you've not seen the show and you watch the film, and you really like it, I completely respect the opinions, and at the same time I can certainly understand if people really hate the film. I'm in the middle. I think it's just a 63%, I think, and that's pretty low considering the show, I think it's just, at least 90% for all three of them. Absolutely, and the second season in particular is just absolutely masterful in my opinion. We'll get to that eventually, but yeah, this is it's an okay film-ish. Definitely very close to the mediocre mark. If it wasn't for the first 20 minutes, I think absolutely it would have been. This is just, I don't like the location too much, the way it's portrayed. The villain as well, that's a thing. I hate the villain. I think it's a terrible, poorly written and acted villain, in my opinion, with all respect. I just think I didn't get to that. I didn't get that at all. That whole villain there, very one-sided, very one-note, and just I get the point, kind of thing. It's just unenjoyable and spiteful, I feel. But yes, this film it's okay, but it really lacks a lot, and it falls into another one of these modern comedies that I think sometimes just don't appeal to me as much. Just it's these values, it's this whole approach to a lot of comedies now. In my opinion, just the sincerity and the whole kind of just smartly done comedy, and the charm of a comedy, and just situations. For example, the series had so good, that series. Just it's not here. Most of it is just kind of you've got vomiting in the show, but even that, for a show to kind of do a scene like that well for comedy, it takes a lot. In this, it's kind of done in a way that's a bit cheap and kind of gross out, and just lacks the soul the show had. To wrap up, I think it's not a bad film. It's a pretty really disappointing, TV to film kind of direction, and just I think it's a shame what they've done with the characters. Simon, for example, just and there's nothing wrong with the performances. They just give them they're doing what they can with the material here, and just the overall direction where it's going, the messages. But that Simon is just quite unlikable throughout the film. Neil is kind of, they do the kind of robot dance, kind of a bit too much for me as well, with Neil, and just I think there's moments that kind of warm with him, and kind of him and Will, for example, and stuff. There's moments throughout that I can bring up all of them, but there's no point, that kind of hold the film to a standard where, for example, there's a couple of jokes here and there, and there's bits, oh, I do like this part, and stuff, and the beginning and the very parts near the very end do kind of make this a film that I like, and just seeing these actors and stuff. But yeah, it's just as a comedy, it's very much a typical kind of just a typical modern comedy that doesn't do anything special. It doesn't appeal to me too much, and it's kind of funny and stuff, but it's not hilarious, and it's not nothing. The direction, I think the cinematography, the editing is a real disappointment, and the use of music, I absolutely am not a fan of any of the songs in this film, and just the way they're used with the slow motion stuff, and it doesn't appeal to me, that kind of stuff. This is me being honest. Real shame, I have every right to be, ashamed of it, not ashamed, disappointed with this, and things, but I think the important thing is, it's a film that's okay. It's, I guess it could have been worse, but it could have been so much more, this film, and maybe they should have just taken their time and just focused on what makes the show so great, and not that it's the stuff with the sex and everything that appeals to everyone, and the swearing, and all this kind of, there's things like this. It's the feeling and the way it's handled, for the humanity of the characters, the realization that this stuff is not necessarily important, the underlying subtle friendships, between all these characters, the warmth, the charm, and I think the British feeling that it has, typical British show, it's just the essentials that are in this show are lost here, for a lot of the points, and just in its own right, it's just definitely very close to mediocre, and nothing more than average, I'm afraid, but yes, I guess it's been a negative review, but yeah, sometimes I think, on YouTube and just in general, there will be films, of course, or anything, art, that you respond to in a negative way, as long as you can kind of explain why, and just say, you just say your opinions. I think it's perfectly fine to do that. I guess I've been used to reviewing a lot of great films and stuff over the last few months, but this one, I think, yeah, it's just a film. Every human will respond to a film in a different way, and for different reasons. I've explained why. I think it doesn't have as much charm as I think is needed. Just as a film in its own right, we'll focus on that. It doesn't have a lot of heart really at times. It's focuses on things that don't appeal to me too much in the way they're handled and the messages. I did like the Jane and Jay thing there. The kind of that was quite human. I really liked that, and she was the best character out of the kind of partners they get. But the ending as well, the ending credits, I don't think that's very strange as well when they were crying. That's not the Inbetweeners. That's just a typical modern film comedy. That's not the Inbetweeners. The Inbetweeners is more than that, and the Inbetweeners is more than the scenes where they're going out and they're dancing and stuff like that. In that way, that's not the Inbetweeners to me, personally, and that's just my personal take on the film. It's okay. It's a like. It's not a dislike, but it's a disappointment, I have to say. And but I think we'll get to see the second film soon, and hopefully that could be a bit more positive. Who knows? I could like that more than I used to. I never really decided on a like or a dislike for that. Again, disappointing though. But yeah, I think it's just my opinion, and I welcome every opinion to the comments, because this is just the Inbetweeners is a creation that I absolutely adore. So any fan, or viewer, everyone is entitled to their own opinions on this, and it's just a thing it is divisive. Some people do hate the film, some people love it. I'm in between, but I am very, very disappointed, and that's just the way I want to do this review. It's a disappointment, naturally. I'm not going to kind of lie and say, oh, they've done a great job. I don't personally feel they did, and it's just my opinion, as a viewer, responding to a piece, if you want my opinion. And this is not saying, this is this. It's just saying what I think of the film. I don't think it's that great. I think it's disappointing, but not a bad one. Just very, very average, quite close to mediocre. And yeah, just hopefully the second one I will like more than I used to. But yes, Ben Palmer's The Inbetweeners movie is naturally, to me, as a true fan of the show, and just this type of comedy that I'm quite shocked that exists, because it's such a marvel actually to behold in modern comedy. I think it's a real gem. This is the thing, it's something to cherish. This film for me is not, absolutely not, and that's just my opinion. And I'm open to everyone's opinions in the comments, and hopefully, yeah, we'll get into some discussions. Maybe talk about the show, hopefully, as well. That'd be great. And yes, as one viewer to another, thanks for watching my review.